So that's when I hit rock bottom. Was, Danielle, what are you doing with your life? Like, your child needs you. They would have been. That's when I knew I had to change for the better. And I looked in the mirror and I seen my dad.
If there was one act of obedience, one thing that you could do today that is going to affect the next 100 years of your bloodline, what would it be?
But nothing good ever came from your comfort zone.
Yeah, no way.
And I've learned that in the last 36 years, right? Nothing good has ever come out of my comfort zone. Like, look where I'm at in my career, right? I have an amazing career because I stepped outside of the box, right? I thought, oh, I'm not ready for this. And well, when am I going to be ready? Never, if I'm not now. And not only that, but my kids deserve better.
Welcome to the Strongpoint, where we're realigning our lives and creating a space for others doing the same. We're not here to mentor or preach. We're here to lock shields with people who still believe in strength, truth, and legacy. Let's get to work.
So today we're diving into what it means to be the first healthy link in a broken chain. Mentally, physically, spiritually, and generationally. Like, this episode is probably going to be one of my favorites. If you didn't grow up with an example like myself worth following, this episode is for you.
Yeah, if you didn't get, like, you grew up, you didn't have a legacy, but really when you look at your family and your life and even people that came before you, and really you look at their lives as a warning on how not to live, then this episode is for you.
This is, let's break those patterns, y'all, and build back better.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
All right. So, really the first place that I think we should go with this is recognizing, like, patterns in your life that you inherited and just automatically assumed and that you do in your home, that is based on stuff that you saw growing up and stuff that your parents saw growing up and their parents saw growing up.
Well, that's funny because my list would be like, never ending. Right. Because, for me, I inherited a whole lot of patterns. What I inherited, the good, bad, the ugly, the hairy, the not stuff that we don't speak about, perfectionism. I inherited that I had to be perfect in everything that I did. My hair had to be perfect. My weight had to be perfect. My image had to be perfect. Like, that was everything. I grew up with that, right?
Yeah.
Another one is worth ethic. I was raised by a boss babe. She passed away 3 years ago. God rest her soul. My grandmother, who was my mom. That's difficult for me to talk about because I still haven't grieved that. I'm not a good griever either for that reason. I was always told you cry on your pillow, like kind of like Abby Lee Miller and Dance Moms, like save your tears for your pillow. But I inherited that work ethic from her because all she did was work. Her and my grandfather who raised me, they started with nothing. Like, my grandfather lived in a shack. You saw the pictures, and then they're millionaires, and they did it themselves from the ground up. And, my nanny drove a red Corvette and she taught me everything I know, but you don't call in unless you're dying, So for me, she would drive past my house and make sure I went to work daily, like when I didn't live there anymore. It was insane. So I learned work ethic from her, if I can talk today. So for me, work is very, very, very important. Well, it was the number one priority. People pleasing is something that I am constantly striving to be better at. I am the biggest people pleaser. I will literally, to my detriment. Sorry, I make up words. Just get to know that as, I make up words. So I'll people please to my detriment. and where it will hurt me or my family, you know,
Yeah,
to
so
please others.
like a complete lack of boundaries and understanding
And
how to
I'm
set
not
them in a
good.
healthy way.
I'm not good at that. It makes me uncomfortable. I'm not good at uncomfortable situations. I'm just not. I try to avoid conflict unless it's with you. I mean, you probably wish I'd avoid it with you. But, and I have abandonment issues. I inherited abandonment issues. You know, I grew up without a father that was in and out of prison for drugs. He chose drugs over me. That is very hard as a child to understand that. So I suffer from an abandonment. Like for me, when you and me get in a fight, I'm like, okay, let's get divorced. Like it's no big deal. I inherited that, you know, where it's easy to walk away. And for you, it's like, I'm not walking away unless it's in a body bag, you know? So I inherited a lot of negative, but I inherited a lot of good too.
Yeah.
You know, I know this episode is about breaking the chain, so we won't talk about the good, but I did inherit
will
some bad things.
At some point.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, yeah. So for me as well, like overworking yourself was the number one thing. My dad always had 2 and 3 jobs. And then when I was in my 20s, I had 2 or 3 jobs. It's just, you know, you do.
Well, you did move countries and you had to survive. So,
but you do what you know,
what you're used to, what you
what
see.
you grew up,
Yeah.
right? Because that's the normal for you. It's like when I think when people get out of relationships or they grow up and they get into relationships that's potentially abusive because that's what they saw at home.
Right.
A lot of the time it's because that's the normal for them, right? And so they don't break out of that habit. They don't even know that there's something different to that, or there is something like a healthy relationship where there's respect and all that kind of stuff. So I think recognizing that where you come from can be broken and is not the be all and end all, and then understanding that. And I think for us, that moment or one of those moments came in, I'd say the last maybe 3 or 4 years with COVID and the riots and everything
Babe, that's
else.
5 years ago. Can you believe that?
No.
That's 5 years ago.
Yeah.
RJ's 4.
I don't believe it, but sure.
Yeah.
And even during that time, we were like, nobody's coming. Right. And at that stage,
it was scary.
All over the country, people would call the police and the police wouldn't come out because they just didn't have the manpower.
Well, do you blame them? They like tried to defund them. Like,
yeah, but
come on.
For that turning point for us was like, okay, we are going to need to do this ourselves and we're going to have to figure it out ourselves. And we started working specifically on that disconnection from being home and being with family. And we had to learn how to be able to sit down and watch a show. Right, and be able to be with the kids and
stay
watch
home. Like that was miserable
Drake
for me.
and Josh and stuff. Sucked.
And
but,
Jersey Shore. Oh my gosh. And that is the worst show. It makes you dumber.
But it's spend time with the kids, right? And be able to, and you know, the cool thing about this, we got to monitor what they were watching.
Right.
To some extent.
Well, and RJ
anyway.
was a baby. Like he wasn't really watching
he
anything.
Didn't care.
He just nursed me to death.
He wanted steaks.
But yeah, you know, and for me, 2020 was scary.
Yeah.
Like it was scary. Like it showed you that the world would cave.
Yep.
It showed you that the people that had big mouths that were running, but they did nothing about it. Like for me, if you're going to run your mouth about something, you better stand for it. And if you don't stand for anything, you're not going to stand for nothing. Yeah. So we were standing for nothing, and that hurt us because we didn't believe any of the bull crap.
Yep.
And you couldn't even come to my prenatal appointments because of all this. Do you remember? It was
I remember
so dumb.
At 20 weeks, they were like, hey, we're going to do the sex, right? Yeah. The gender. So I was like, okay. And they called specifically and it was like, you can come to this one appointment. And I was like, this is awesome. Great, so I went with you.
You had to get COVID tested though before.
Yeah. They let me into the building. They let me into the room. I got to talk to everybody there. I got to sit down and watch the ultrasound, and then I had to leave because they were like,
before my doctor could examine
you can't be here for the doctor examination. And I was like, I'm already here.
You
like,
couldn't
I don't
go
understand
with me at all. Like you couldn't be a part of any of that. It was horrible.
Yeah.
Like I would have to record his heartbeat for you and let you hear it.
It was a huge turning point for us because of having him, we were like, we need to fix some of the things. So
the brokenness.
Yeah. So that we can take ownership and really take control of where we're kind of heading as a family. And it hasn't been perfect. Obviously, it's a work in progress, but we got a ton of stuff done in the last 2 years. We've got a good couple of strategies that we're doing right now, and it's helping us to reshape and redirect the direction of our lives. It doesn't have to be like, we learned that it doesn't have to be based on where we came from or what our families did. We can do our own thing,
Right.
you know?
Right. Like your past has nothing to do with your future if you don't allow it.
Yeah.
You know, the inherited patterns that I inherited, the turning points for me was when I had Riley.
Yeah.
I was young. I was 22. I was young and I had this little baby. They don't come with instruction manuals.
Nope.
They're like, they just give you this child and they're like, go for it. And you're like, where's the manual? Like, how do I do this? And I was a young mom, but I realized I had to be better for my child.
Yeah.
That's who I lived for, was my child. So then I lost my identity in my child. And again with RJ, right?
Yeah.
You lose yourself in your child.
Especially as a mom, I think, because that connection's so tight.
It is so tight. Like, no one understands that connection unless they are a mom. Like, you do not understand. And I'm talking to moms that have carried a child, even if it wasn't to term. I've had many miscarriages. I know what it's like. You're still a mom and you still have a connection with that child. And I know I have several play dates in heaven one day, not that I want to go right now, but eventually, I have several play dates. So I better be buried in sweatpants because, I have several play dates of the babies we lost.
Yeah.
And, but becoming a mom was a huge turning point for me. But then I went buck wild. So it was a turning point for me until me and her father split up. And that was the biggest blessing of my life. We were just not good for each other.
Yeah.
And I knew that I was in love with someone else. So I canceled that wedding 3 months before. My family lost 30 grand. They were not very happy. But that wedding was a circus and pony show. I had Circus LA booked. It was all at the Grand. It was going to be champagne towers and stuff. Like, if you really love somebody, you don't need all that. Like, you and me got married in a firehouse. I didn't even have a ring,
Yeah.
Like, it was the day before the license expired when I finally decided, okay, I'll do this. And I don't look back. I don't regret it at all. I do want a wedding one day, and we will, but I'd rather have a honeymoon, I like to travel. But
Sure.
for me, I bottomed out even after having Riley, I bottomed out. And, at 22, I didn't get to live. Like, I was pregnant at 22, or I had her at 22. So I didn't really get to live.
Yeah.
So when me and her dad split up, I went buck wild. I went crazy. I was going out. I was never a drinker because it makes me extremely ill.
Yeah.
And I was going to bars with friends. I was hanging out. It was insane. I had a really good friend of mine, and my breaking point, like where I hit rock bottom, was when I woke up on their bathroom floor the next day.
Yeah.
And didn't remember anything and only had one drink. So I know they put something in my drink, and they never talked to me again either. So that's when I hit rock bottom. Was, Danielle, what are you doing with your life? Like, you could have died. Like, your child needs you. They would have been. That's when I knew I had to change for the better.
Do you think at that moment in your mind you drew a comparison between your life and your dad's life potentially?
I did. My dad grew up. My dad grew up, and addiction runs in my family. So I knew that I was headed down that path. That I had two paths to go, left or right, and I wanted to go the opposite. So I wanted to go right. I could have fell down that left pattern, easily, that left road that led me to exactly where he is. That's where I was at.
Yeah.
But it's a blessing for me that I woke up on that bathroom floor, on that code floor. Had no idea what had happened. Still don't know to this day. Don't want to know. And literally turned my life around.
Yeah.
That day, my mom picked me up. I said 911, and she knew where I was. She located me.
Yeah.
And it was back in the day when the location was a little different, right? And I had a baby, and I was supposed to be home that night. And luckily I have a great family that didn't call like she wasn't with a babysitter or something that would have thought I died. And that was a big turning point for me. And then I realized when I looked in the mirror, when I got up that morning and I took a good look in the mirror and my mascara was ran down my face, I had a black eye. Like, it's emotional. My lipstick was smeared. I had a rip in my pantyhose. I had lost a whole shoe. I have no idea still where that Jimmy Choo shoe went. And I looked in the mirror and I seen my dad.
Yeah.
And it's not that my dad's a bad person. He's clean and sober. I'm so proud of you, Dad. But I seen my dad and I thought, my child deserves better.
Yeah.
And then I became a completely different person from that moment forward.
It's crazy that you can, after the fact, right? They say hindsight's 20/20. You can recognize dysfunction, like in your family, and then recognize it in you. Like,
well, the truth is, I was unhappy.
Yeah.
So I was searching for something in all the wrong places. Like, I didn't know God. My family was not religious. I didn't grow up in church.
Yeah.
I didn't grow up with that firm foundation. I was dysfunction junction. Like, I was searching for something that could only have been met by something higher than I.
Yeah.
And I literally was searching in all the wrong places. Like, I just didn't know. I was so young and naive. And I'm still pretty naive. I'm gullible. You can get me. But I learned so much from that moment. And I really grew as a person. I think I went from 23 to like 42, that night. I think I started getting gray hair right then. But it's probably the most eye-opening, best thing that could have happened to me. And I don't believe I believe God has to allow bad things to happen because the enemy is the God of this world, right?
Yeah.
But I believe that he lets us learn lessons from it.
Yeah.
And I learned a really hard lesson that day. Like, I learned what I looked at in the mirror was not who I wanted to be.
Yeah. Yeah.
For my daughter.
I get it. I think breaking that pattern, breaking that inheritance, and being able to move in a new direction and being really disciplined about it is what sets you apart in the long run. It's not like this grand gesture, oh, look, I'm changing my life. It's like the really small things that you change, and then you just have to be super consistent and disciplined and show up every day, the same decisions.
I was a different
every
person
single day.
after that, and I didn't need a loud crowd. It wasn't, oh, this is a goal. This had to happen for my baby girl. Yeah. I had to be better for her and for myself. Like, I would have ended up in a ditch somewhere. Yeah. No, it wasn't drugs. It wasn't anything like that. But, that was very scary. I don't know what was put in my drink that night. And yeah, that is very eye-opening. So
I think it's one of the more common loops though, right? Almost everybody that I know go through this phase when they're in their 20s and 30s. And I did really, really badly when I was much younger.
Yeah.
I lived in Ireland and we were out, Thursday, Friday, Saturday night.
Yeah.
Every week we were out and we were getting smashed, and it becomes a real social thing.
Well, I'm not good at getting smashed because I'm throwing up and I got to go to the hospital, to get my stomach pumped. And that brings me to another story if we can share, if we have time. But, I dated a guy that drove a Porsche, right? Had a Porsche. Like, that was some big deal, I didn't care that he drove a Porsche. I liked him for him. Well, we went out one night. We went to some party and we were taking shots off of an ice sculpture. And then we ended up going out in Louisville. And I didn't realize he was drunk, and I was in the car with him. And he was driving me home. And my best friend, who's a cop, pulled him over. I don't want to say best friend, but I grew up with this guy, right? Pulled him over, breathalyzed him, and he breathalyzed 8 times over the legal limit of Kentucky. I made it from 50 miles from where I live to close to proximity to where I live in Louisville. And he pulled him over and he got him out of the car and breathalyzed him. And he said, "You are 8 times over the legal limit with my friend in the car." So he went to jail.
Yeah.
And his car got put into whatever they do. Impounded. That's it. Yeah, impounded. And that cop friend of mine that I went to high school with drove me home. And the lecture I got, but I had no idea this guy was smashed.
Yeah.
No idea. And that was a wake-up call too. Very big wake-up call. I could have died.
Yeah. A big part of that is also that when you come from a place, and this is everybody, it's not just people with really traumatic pasts.
No.
You come from a place where nobody taught you, right? How do you handle that situation? How would you handle that situation? Nobody sits you down.
I wouldn't get in the car.
No, but nobody sits you down and goes, "Hey,
I knew
this
better.
is what you need to look for
my mom
to
did.
see if someone's super."
But
after the fact,
he
right?
was one of those people that could drink it. You had no idea. I didn't even know he had consumed the amount of alcohol he had consumed. I thought he took one shot. I must be not very observant. I don't know, or he did it behind my back. I'm not sure, but
that's my point, though. Is not unless you're looking for it, unless you've been coached, somebody taught you, said, "Hey, this is specifically what you look for to see if someone's really, really drunk."
Yeah, well, I'm not,
or whatever it is, right? So, but there's a litany of things that fall in that category, like finances and credit and all kinds of stuff that they don't obviously teach in school.
Right.
As families, we don't sit our kids down and spend time and go, "Hey, we want to teach you how to do this. I want you to know how to apply
that you can call me at 3 a.m.
rent,
that you can,
right? I want you to know how to do your taxes." All this stuff is stuff that I had to figure out myself. Right now, part of it was my own fault because I moved countries when I was real young.
And everywhere's different. Yeah.
But nobody, I have a bunch of people who work for me who are real young, and none of them know. We have a person in my office that hasn't filed taxes in 3 years because they think you only have to file every 3 years, and don't understand how that specifically works. So, even setting boundaries and parenting and leading and that kind of thing, I don't think anybody coaches you through that. And I think if we can get to a place where we, again, take ownership of that with our kids and even in our lives, and even just sit down and journal and write down, this is what I know about leadership. This is what I was taught about parenting. This is what I have figured out about whatever it is. And then be able to sit your kids down and go, "Hey, I know you're probably not going to do it the same way that we did. I hope you do it much better. But I want to tell you the lessons that I learned during this process."
What we should do for our community is create a legacy book. Create a legacy book from mom and from dad, or from grandpa and grandma, or from future to future children, or whatever. Create a legacy book of all the stuff we learned.
Yeah.
And of our past, and maybe they won't have to relive it. Or we can teach them some valuable lessons. I think that we need to do that. We have the Strongpoint book available on Amazon. Why not do a legacy one?
It's on the website too now. So, but that's an awesome idea.
Because nobody taught me any of that. I still don't know finances. If you told me I have to pay one of our bills, I wouldn't even know where to go. I don't even know who we pay.
Well, I do that to keep you around. So that's...
Yeah, because if something happens to you, listen, the lights getting turned off, everything's getting turned off. I don't even know how to cook.
I want to address something, though, with regards to this. I know we're talking about breaking patterns and doing things different to your family. And then one thing when I talk to people about this that I get pushback on, it's like, well, why do I have to do it? Or why am I the person? My parents didn't do it. Why can't somebody else do it?
What kind of attitude is that, though?
Well, it's the culpability avoidance thing. That's
I gotta put some lip gloss on. Sorry, y'all.
So prevalent in the world right now that everybody wants to put the onus on somebody else, right? You see it everywhere. We see it in politics where we're like, oh, we vote for this person and he's going to save us all. We see
Oh,
it
Jesus, the Elon and
everywhere,
Trump.
right?
I cannot. Like, I'm so heartbroken right now, but it could just be a pretend joke.
Could just be stage fear, right? But
I don't know.
addressing it head on and being able to say, okay, like, I'm not waiting for anybody else. I don't know how to fix this, but I'm going to at
Do
least
my best.
take the responsibility
Yes.
to try and do it
Well,
and see where it goes.
and here's the thing, decision fatigue for me. Like, I hate change. Let me tell y'all, I hate change. I am not good with it. Like, I don't like change, but nothing good ever came from your comfort zone.
Yeah, no way.
And I've learned that in the last 36 years, right? Nothing good has ever come out of my comfort zone. Like, look where I'm at in my career, right? I have an amazing career because I stepped outside of the box, right? I thought, oh, I'm not ready for this. And well, when am I going to be ready? Never if I'm not now. And not only that, but my kids deserve better. And they deserve me. And they deserve this, what we're doing now. They deserve this. They deserve to know how to live life when it comes to more than algebra and geometry and social studies. Now, I think all that's important, but I think learning how to be a good person, learning how to be a good member of society, learning to stand for what you believe in, learning to pay your taxes, learning to not get in credit card debt, learning how to be debt free. Now, I'm not debt free. I need to pay off one card, but that's all we got. That Whatnot app that I swipe and bid, that is addicting. Don't get on there unless you're shopping on my Whatnot. Mint Julep Glow is me. Mint Julep Glow. Y'all can bid and shop there all day. But, I think our kids need to learn the basics, and I think schools actually do it on purpose. I think we are set up to fail in a society. I think our credit score is like a big thing on our forehead, and our credit score is good now, but we had to work to get there. And you're not taught that. Like, you're not taught to invest. You're not, like, our kids should be taught investments. Our kids should be taught about the stock market, or not even the stock market. It sucks right now, but just about investing and investing well, and about finances, and about how to build, and about how to thrive, and about life.
Yeah.
Not just about what they're taught, and they're taught someone else's beliefs. So if your teacher is LGBTQ, which I'm not calling out that community or anything, like, it's fine. You be you, dude. I'll be me. But if their teacher believes in that, like our daughters did, it's all over. And that's what they teach. They leave out the history that they don't want to talk about.
Yeah.
They leave out our founding fathers. They leave out the Constitution. They leave out our kid. They don't know what their rights are as an American.
Yeah.
And that's why everybody was caught with their pants down, so to speak, in 2020. People knew their rights, but nobody stood for shit. Everybody just wore the mask, except the lady calling everybody sheep.
Yeah.
She stood for something, and I always say, if you're not going to stand for something, you're going to stand for nothing.
Yeah.
And that is what led to this.
All right. So what is the first step though? Right? What is the very first step? You spend some time, you've now identified some of the patterns that you inherited that you're like, I'm not okay with this. So what is the first step? And for us, it really was forgiveness, right?
Well, first, it was labor. Let's be a mom, okay? It's labor. It is uncomfortable, okay? To recognize something is wrong with you, it is uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Like, you have to see yourself for who you really are. And that's hard. And the first step is to know who you really are.
Yeah.
Not who others think you are or who others want you to be. And I dealt with that big time. So it's self-reflection. And then it's labor. You have to do things behind the scenes to work on you. And then it's exactly what you said, forgiveness.
Yeah.
Without permission, without someone saying, I'm sorry, forgiveness. Because forgiveness is like they say, unforgiveness is drinking poison, hoping the other person will die. That's what you and I always say, because it builds up in your body. Like my naturopath, who we hope to have on the podcast soon, will tell you I deal with unforgiveness so bad that it's hurting my liver.
Yeah. Resentment.
And I didn't even know who I resented. Oh, he knew. But, I didn't even know I resented these people. But let's also walk backwards. Forgiveness is a process.
Yeah.
It's a daily process. You have to get up daily and re-forgive the person for the same daggone thing over and over. And they're going to keep doing it too.
I want to be very clear about this. Forgiving people doesn't mean that you're okay with what they did, right? It means that you're letting go of the feeling that's attached to that.
Right.
Right? Because first of all, and this is really important, if we realize that people don't think at all, and then realize that the little bit that they do think, they think about themselves,
Right.
and that you're in the back of their mind, and a lot of the time they do things that offend us or hurt us, and it wasn't obviously not their intention. I think there's very few people in the world that wake up and go, today I'm going to do X, Y, and Z.
I don't know. I know a few.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure, right?
Yeah.
But not everybody. And I think we're so quick to jump on a thing that says, oh, they did that to hurt me. And I think there's some arrogance in that to think that, right? But there's another part of the forgiveness that also is like, yeah, I forgive them for doing it because they weren't thinking or they didn't know.
But I'm going to remember it.
But then there's a much bigger part of the forgiveness part is forgiving yourself for not noticing, right, the things that you were supposed to notice, not being more aware and ignoring red flags.
And letting yourself get hurt.
Yeah,
for sure. I think you have to forgive yourself too. I think that unforgiveness, you also need to forgive yourself.
Yeah.
For allowing it. Because for me, I had to forgive myself for things.
Yeah.
That I was still holding on to. That's a part of my past. And I can't tell you the difference it's made, but I have to do it daily.
Yeah.
I have to re-forgive the same daggone people every day. I'm like the 10-step program of forgiveness. If there was an AA meeting for it, I'd be there. Hi, I'm Danielle. I need to forgive X, Y, A to double Z. You know what I mean? Yeah. Women have something in their brain that we remember everything. Everything you've ever done to us, every wrong, we know. You know what I mean? We hold on to it. We are grudge keepers. I know for me, I definitely am. But I've gotten better.
Yeah.
Because honestly, why would you want to be in that wound up unforgiveness, resentment for your life? You have one life to live. Make it meaningful and make it worth it and help change someone else. Give them hope. Give them something to look forward to. I think as humans, we get into the pattern of work, football practice, band concerts, grocery shopping. We get into our rhythm and our pattern and we do it over and over. And it's like that day, Groundhog Day.
Yeah.
And for me, I can't live like that anymore. I have to step outside of that because I will go insane. And you know that. And I think as humans, we get into our own patterns that we don't see what's right in front of our face.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're too comfortable. And I think that's the problem with 2020 that it exposed is that as Americans, we have so much comfort in, I joined the Louisville Eat Out Club, right? Where I was knowing all these restaurants that would deliver for COVID. That was my life. What? I could have been doing something about these riots that were taking down our favorite restaurants, that were hurting business owners, that hurt our own business, my boutique, that, really, we could have been difference makers. And now I know now's the perfect time. But, God knows the timing. So I don't have any regrets. But I wish we would have stood for something then.
Yeah.
I wish we would. I don't want to start no militia or no Jim Jung drank the Kool-Aid cult or anything. But I wish we would have stood for something during that time because there's a lot of people that lost their lives that shouldn't. COVID is a very serious subject, for me, because people lost their lives and were put on ventilators because they didn't know what to do when really it's been out there since the 20s.
Yeah.
It's on the flippin' Lysol bottle.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And don't use Lysol. It's horrible, but that we'll get into that later. But what I'm saying is they did this to us on purpose, and we were like rats in a cage.
Yeah.
We were like hamsters on the wheel, just letting them play us like fiddles.
Yep.
And I wish we would have stood for something, with the, oh, you got to be in by 9 p.m. or, oh, who the hell are you to tell me what I have to do?
Yeah.
Now, I'm not belittling COVID. If you lost a loved one to COVID, I'm so sorry. I did too. I get it. I lost a lot of friends to COVID, and it was a very serious disease.
Yeah.
But they did it to us.
Yeah.
Wuhan, China, Bill Gates did it to us. And I think it goes deeper than that. And you will not convince me otherwise that Bill Gates
You're going to get us banned, dude.
didn't do this to us.
So bad.
I don't care. They can ban us. What are they going to do? This is my First Amendment right, freedom of speech.
Yep.
So I'm going to freedom of speech it. I'm an American.
Freedom of speech shit out of
I'm a freedom of speech. We need a shirt that says that. What is it?
Freedom of speech the shit out of it.
We need a book. I need to write
I'm going to
that
make a
damn book.
t-shirt.
Yeah,
That's going to be a
we're gonna
t-shirt,
have
bro.
that t-shirt. Here's the thing.
So
If someone doesn't talk about it, though, like I
Yeah,
know I'm off
nobody
topic,
will.
always am. Someone doesn't talk about it, who the hell's going to?
yeah, for sure. I know. So
Back on topic. He's gonna always get us back on topic.
I really am
He's
trying
the-
to.
He's
so
the,
hard.
He's the on topic guy.
I have to get a leash on this thing because like
On what thing?
it's going somewhere,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
It's going somewhere, and it's is a direction.
But I'm so ready to talk
we're
about the
trying to
nitty gritty.
go-
Okay, like I'm dying to talk
There's a
about
direction
the
we're
nitty-gritty.
trying to go into, and maybe the next episode will just like
Freestyle
nothing.
it. I
yeah.
think we need to freestyle.
Yeah. No, I mean, but like I key for me for this is I want to bake in so much value that people can walk away from this.
Freeze.
And it wasn't just entertainment. It was like, hey, they gave me some stuff to think about and some stuff that I
Absolutely.
can do.
And we're doing that.
So if we think about breaking these patterns, right, and the unforgiveness and fixing all that, then I'll give you guys 2 things that we did, that really, really tiny things that has completely changed things for us, but it's something that every day we have to do. And it's even though it's small things, we have to be really consistent in it. And the first thing was that we are trying to be more active with the kids. So we may not get to this every day, but we're always doing something. There's football practice. We're at the practice. We're walking up and down the pitch. If there's no football practice, we might go for a walk around the block. Or when I go out to cook for the day, RJ will be out and Riley be out riding their scooters or their bikes or whatever, just to get them a little bit more active and for us to be out there with them, to be able to spend time with them. It's a great example for them, right?
We've been more present.
Yeah.
So RJ always asks, and Riley, how was your day?
Yeah.
And I really tell them.
How was
and
work?
then I ask, how was work? And then I ask them, how was your day? And right now Riley's on summer vacation and she's not doing very well because she doesn't have a phone. So that's been really hard. I think she's cleaned the house 42 times in 2 weeks, but that's fine with me. But, I think being more present and doing things with them, and that's something we're still working on because starting this has taken a lot of time. Starting my whatnot is taking a lot of time, but I think it's going to pay off, and they have been very supportive. And so we want to be very supportive to them. We want to be the parents that are present, not absent.
Yep.
And our jobs are very demanding, so it's hard. Sometimes I come home and I'm like, ugh, I don't even want to get out of the car. Like, I just need 10 minutes, But then I realize what's waiting for me on the other side of that door.
Yeah.
And I rush home to it. Like, I don't want my kids just to know me as the mom that worked all the time. Like like that Mother's Day thing that my mom likes to work. My mom's hobby is work. My mom enjoys work. My mom is always
from
working.
last year.
I mean, it was
It
horrible.
was so funny.
I'm like, does he really think I like to work? Because
Yeah.
don't, you know, I work for an amazing company and all that, but
Yeah.
you know, I don't, you know, my favorite thing to do is be with my family, but I like to have the financial resources to be able to give him a toy when he wants a toy, when he deserves it or when he earns it, and Riley what she needs as well,
Yeah.
you know, and so, you know, you have to have a 2-income household. This economy is the way it is, you know, and
Yeah. So find like that though, right? Find one or two things, just two things starting off, like
now
small
that's your
things.
challenge. Find 2
That's
small things you can
that's your
change.
homework, right? And then the second thing that we learned during that process is that you have to define for yourself what success is going to look like in this, right? What am I going to end up with that's going to tell me that we did good or
Right.
it worked? Because I always go, if you're going to set a goal, you want to make it measurable so that you know when
And you're
you've
not
achieved
gonna
it.
set it every day.
The goal for us changed so much, and now the goal is just for us to learn. It's not, we don't have a very defined thing that we're looking for. We just know if we're learning out of this and we can adjust and adjust the sails a little bit and move the direction we're going into, that is success. That is success because it's such an ongoing learning curve
Right.
every day for us. We
Yeah.
are learning more about our kids, more about specifically what we can do to change the
Yeah. I
direction we're
mean,
going.
success for us used to be money.
Oh yeah.
It used to be money. Like we had the big house. We had the fancy cars. We had the debt that goes along with it. We had the American dream.
Yeah.
And the American nightmare is more like it. But we had all that. We sold it all.
Yep.
And paid off everything and started this, you know, to make a difference in other people's lives. Like for me, that's success. It's not money. And yes, leaving something for my kids. That's why I think these legacy books we need to create.
Yeah, for sure.
It'll be for
I'm already on it.
their kids, their kids' kids, their kids' kids, and then other people in the community. Like we want your legacies. Like we want your legacy books. Like I think we could teach the next generations so much, you know? We need to teach the generations what's in the Bill of Rights, what's the Constitution, what are the amendments, what are they used for? You know, we need to teach them about government. We need to teach them about finances, about taxes, about, unless Trump gets rid of the taxes, praise God, let's hope. We need to teach them about everything because if we don't, no one will.
Yeah.
You know, and to teach them that it's not all about money. You know, it's about time and memories with your family.
Yeah, and let's just make sure everybody understands this. Your kids, when you teach them, they are not going to do what you tell them.
No.
They are only going to model what they see.
Right.
Right. So you can sit down with them and teach them this stuff all the time. But
Don't
if
be
you're
a
not,
hypocrite.
if they don't see it, like they're just not going to do it.
Right.
So educate yourself, right? Spend some time in a book. Turn the TV off, get off your cell phone, do a digital detox for a week.
Get off TikTok.
Yeah.
Get off.
Doom scroll, stop doom scrolling. Like this.
I do it. I have a bad habit of it. I've gotten better, but yeah, I get it.
There's a lot of things that you can do to model new behaviors to your kids that we just don't do.
And not only that, but like when you make a mistake, own it.
Own up, yeah.
Even if it's in front of your kids. Like the other day I was yelling for no reason. I had to sit my kids down and apologize. Like, don't be afraid to own it and apologize and be vulnerable because vulnerability is beautiful. And when your children see you being vulnerable, they're going to learn to be vulnerable too. And that it's okay to make a mistake and that they need to say sorry when they're wrong. Like for me, you know, I'm not perfect. I'm imperfect. And I want them to know that. I'm striving to be the best version of myself for them. But I'm not always going to succeed. So being vulnerable enough to say, hey, I know what I did was wrong. Mommy acted wrong. And I'm really sorry. Like, get on their level, you know, and be vulnerable with them. You don't have to be a hard ass with your kids all the time. Now, there's a time and a place where you have to be.
Yeah.
But you got to teach them and raise them up the right way. But be vulnerable when you're wrong.
Yeah. And then, of course, as always, any of the things that you're doing, you're going to really struggle if it's not rooted in something that's much bigger than what you are, right? Whether that's your purpose. For us, it's our faith. It's a huge deal of what we do. And my favorite verse in the Bible is Jeremiah 29:11, which it says, I know the plans I have for you, plans to prosper you, not to harm you, plans to give you hope in the future. And with this process of building this and starting this, I feel like we're aligning to God's plans for our lives more so than what the stupid plans that we had. I think what God does when you make super duper cool plans is he chuckles because
Yeah.
yeah.
He stops them.
So root everything you have in faith, right?
Yeah.
And spend some time in the Bible, spend some time on your knees. Make sure that you are aligned with what your purpose is.
And you probably don't even know your purpose. Your purpose is what you're passionate about. Your purpose is what fuels your juices. That's your purpose.
Yeah. I mean, there's something in your heart. And everybody, when I say that, every person listening to this immediately knows what I'm talking about. Like there's something inside of you that you're like, this is something I've been thinking about for years.
But I don't know what to do. Yeah.
You know what is going to really suck is when you are 76
and it's too
and
late.
You think about it and you're like, I should have just done it.
Actually, it's never too late until you're gone.
I mean, when you realize, at some point you realize that nobody cares and nobody is thinking anything about you, and you should have stopped caring about what they think a long time ago.
People pleasing.
Right?
Another thing you have to have is grace and growth. So you need grace and grit because with transformation comes failure.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of failure.
A ton.
A lot. And
lessons.
Because every failure, I have learned something. And boy, when I say failure, I fail every day at something. You know, and that's okay. It's picking yourself back up and starting again.
Yeah.
It transforms you.
Yeah. I mean, the consistency of it is just getting up and doing it again.
Grit
getting up and
grace.
Learning some more and getting up and learning some more, having grace for yourself and then also having grace for each other, right? When I do a lot, I'm a real guy, so I do a lot of really dumb stuff. And she has a lot of grace for me.
Yes, he does do a lot of dumb stuff.
The kids, that's one part that I'm really working on, is having more grace with the kids.
You need that.
Because I have super high expectations of them.
And they're 4 and 13.
Yeah. And I don't want to lower my expectations because I don't want to set a low bar for them.
No.
I'd much rather learn to have grace when they fail than set a really low bar they end up like all the boneheads we see in the rack.
But that's where we conflict a lot.
Yeah.
Because I'm mom. Look, I'm Mama Bear. Daddy goes after him. Mama Bear comes in to attack, right? And I've got to be better at that because all he's doing, he loves them the same as me. He's just trying to train them up the right way. And he doesn't spank, nothing like that. I'm talking like he'll discipline is like set him in timeout, yell, all that stuff.
Yell. Mostly.
Yell mostly. Yeah. So if he would just, and I get on him, but I shouldn't get on him in front of the kids because that shows that we're not aligned. And that's something we're working on.
And then for the comment section today, my question is just this. If there was one act of obedience, one thing that you could do today that is going to affect the next 100 years of your bloodline, what would it be? Right? Throw that in the comments for us.
And one piece of advice.
Yeah, and maybe a piece of advice
you want for your
throw
bloodline.
It in there. We might compile it into like a short
that would be awesome
PDF
with the legacies.
or something.
Yeah,
that would be awesome.
Like, awesome.
But we'd love to see the feedback from you guys. If you go to the strongpoint.com and you go to /homestead, you join our private community there, and
we'll be uploading podcasts soon.
Be all kinds of stuff on there, specifically for conversations and back and forth.
Some cool t-shirts.
To try and figure it
books.
out.
We're going to be doing a lot, guys. We're going to be having a lot of people on this podcast. We want this thing to get big and get out there, not because we want to be famous, but because we want to reach people that need it.
Yeah, I think it's so needed right now.
Yeah.
And also we're not trying to like teach anybody anything at all. We're just trying
to learn ourselves.
We're trying to build You remember in the old days, like when
I'm not
kids
old,
were
I don't
growing
remember.
up? No, but even when you were a kid, when kids were growing up,
Yeah.
the whole neighborhood raised the kids.
Oh yeah, you could ride your
right?
bike all over.
That's all
and-
we're
yeah.
trying to do. It's a digital kind of version of that because people are like
Very
so
digital now.
disconnected
Yeah,
and far
you don't
apart.
go out with people. Yeah.
Ideally, eventually, I hope that people from our community will hook up like in towns and go out
Or even
and meet up
travel
and
and meet
whatever,
up in like
right?
Midwest
Or
and
whatever it is.
Southwest,
But
whatever. Yeah.
that's I want this to build because people are contributing
And I want
with each other.
this to be
right?
more than just our podcast. I want
Yeah,
it
no
to
way.
be a community. I want it to be your
Well,
all's as well.
So I'll let you guys into a little piece of this, little secret. We're working in the background, kind of building something, two more pieces to the community, and then we're looking to build a specific area for what we want to call the elders. It's gonna be people who get in,
The OGs.
yeah, the OGs who get in, who start listening to the podcast really early, start following, and really want to make a difference and contribute. And what we want to do with that part of the community, it's going to be really small, maybe 100 to 200 people, where we could every month meet with them and decide where we're going the next month.
Yeah.
So
what
it's a community.
topics we're going to cover, who we want to interview, like just, what we want to do, like what needs to be discussed. Like I want this to be a community involvement thing.
Yeah.
This isn't the Danielle and Rion show.
Our podcast.
Yeah. This isn't the Danielle and Rion show. Like we just want to step out in faith and step out because we're sick of what we see.
Yeah.
We're sick of it.
Yeah. So to round this out, if you came from chaos and confusion and addiction and all these things, right? Let's stop blaming our past. Let's stop blaming our circumstances, and let's really tackle that discipline of the small habits that's going to change things from here on out.
That's so good. So if this episode resonated with you, share it with someone. Please share it with someone to break their own chain. That's what we're here for. Follow us on Instagram, you all, and YouTube at The Strongpoint, and leave a review on Spotify and Apple. Pretty please. We will do a giveaway. Do it. Share. Give us a review. Spotify, Apple. Join us on Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook. It helps this message reach others, and I think our society needs it.
Yeah. So remember, you don't have to be perfect. You just have to be faithful.
Yeah.
You just have to show
And
up
consistent.
and be consistent.
Yeah.
That's it.
That's it.
We love you guys.
Yes.
We appreciate every one of you.
And God bless
we hope to
every one
see
of
you
you.
guys in the next episode.
Yes.
We've got some good things coming up.
Yes, we do. Love you guys. Bye, y'all.